St. Joe is putting on some events associated with the total solar eclipse. And St. Joe is where Jesse James was killed, and so there's sort of a Wild West feel to, and the museum there. And in fact, they can even show you I think the hole in the wall from the bullet. And also, the Pony Express was the eastern terminus, and then from there is when they would ride their horses across the continent to California with the mail. So a lot of feeling of the Wild West and the Western history comes in on that part of the state, particularly in St. Joseph. And it's a very, very rare thing for us. The last time there was a total solar eclipse in Missouri was in 1452, which is prior to Columbus. So this is a very rare event for our state, and both on the western and central and eastern, there'll be special astronomers. They'll be giving seminars and so forth, and it's really be a lot of fun. But if people are going to do that, they probably need to do it rather quickly because the hotels are filling up for that specific date, which is August 21st, 2017.
You can follow me on Twitter at holiday_hut. So the date for the solar eclipse again is the 21st of August in 2017, and it's the first total eclipse in Missouri since 1452. So if you missed this one, you're going to have an awful long wait for the next one. And as Dan said, if you fancy seeing it in Missouri and do the other things we're going to be discussing later, then you really do need to book up soon because you might not have anywhere to stay unless you like sleeping in the back of your car. Still to come on the show, the app that helps people plan their own trips. While I was in Antigua, I had to get it in again. I did come across a lady who booked everything online. And everything was fine except that she didn't book a transfer between the airport and the hotel, which was a shock to the party she was in charge of. And also she messed up the return date as well. She checked out the hotel on the right date, but she thought she was leaving and arriving home on the same day and not the next day. So although this app is going to be helping people, perhaps you shouldn't stop using professionals to sort your holidays out in the near future. But of course, I'm biased, as you know. So Missouri, it has Route 66 going through it, and the next thing we're going to be finding out from Dan is where the route goes through the state and various stop-off points along the way.
Well, it comes into the state in St. Louis, and of course that's our largest city, and St. Louis just so many things to do there. But in particular, with regard to Route 66, as you come in, there's a Route 66 museum in St. Louis. And then there's a iconic place that's been there since the late 20s, which is called Ted Drewes, Drewes. And it's a frozen custard stand. I think you don't have frozen custard, perhaps, in the UK. It's really kind of a thick ice cream. It's not really custard. It's ice cream. And it's delicious, and the building looks like it has always looked, that kind of iconic look of the Route 66 American architecture along there. And then as you go to the west, Merrimack Caverns, which is a place where, speaking of Jesse James again, the 1800s outlaw, he hung out in the Merrimack Caverns, and where he hid out from the authorities. One of the largest rocking chairs was in Fanning, Missouri, along Route 66, which is a pretty good and interesting photo op. And again, all along Route 66, John, much of it, of course, it's been replaced by Interstate 44 from an effectiveness transportation standpoint, but I-44 has none of the romance of Route 66, which continues to include many of the iconic gas stations, motels, cafes, and kind of wacky sculptures, concrete dinosaurs and Indian teepees and the like that you associate with Route 66. It's really a throwback to the 1950s. Very, very interesting. Springfield, Missouri is about two-thirds of the way through, and that's actually the birthplace of Route 66, where they actually came up with the name and selected Route 66 as the name of that highway, the Mother Road. Brand new car museum there that has classic cars, and the history of Route 66 is in Springfield. And I would say there's a brand new opening coming up next year in Springfield called Wonders of Wildlife. And it's hard to describe the enormity of this project, but it's based on a 1.3 million gallon aquarium that's one of the largest in the whole world, is in Springfield, Missouri. It's opening in the spring. It's associated with the Bass Pro Shops, which is the largest sporting goods outfitter in the U.S., and has to do with conservation and hunting and fishing. It's just an absolutely first-rate experience for people to have as they're going along Route 66. But as you continue to go west, people often take a day trip down to Branson, Missouri, which is south of Springfield, about 45 minutes. And they have in Branson, Missouri, in addition to beautiful lakes and other attractions there, it's in the southern Ozark Mountains, which are absolutely beautiful. They have more theater seats than Broadway in Branson, Missouri. About 40-some theaters, about 75 shows of every different kind of music, country music, pop, rock and roll, pop, and all of it is very, very family-friendly down there. So you can go down as a couple, or go down on your motorcycle, or go down with your family and have a blast down in Branson, and either as a day trip or a stopover, and then come back up to Springfield and turn west and continue your journey to Route 66 through Joplin and over to Oklahoma. So it's quite an adventure on Route 66, and we're seeing more and more international visitors who are enjoying that.
You can keep up to date with travel news and leave me a message at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. Interstate 44 just doesn't have the same ring to it as Route 66. So if you want to have a romantic drive through the state, keep off 44 and stay on 66. Oh, I don't mean to be lecturing you though. But Dan said that Route 66 comes into the state of Missouri at St. Louis, and I was wondering if St. Louis or St. Louis was the same place that Bugs Bunny mentioned in a cartoon an awful long time ago, back before I was even born, but I remember when I was a kid.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So long, Screwy. See you in St. Louis.
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
Yes, that's the one. Yes, that is St. Louis.
Yes.
Right. Although the correct name is St. Louis, but yes, we refer to it informally as St. Louis.
St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it's also, as well as Route 66 coming through, it's the home of the National Blues Museum. What's all that about?
Well, yeah, let's talk about that. I think music is a very important part of the appeal of Missouri to visitors. And we'll talk about the National Blues Museum in just one moment, but the National Blues Museum and blues actually grew up along that Mississippi River corridor, which is what travels on the east side of our state and goes all the way down to New Orleans. So Nashville, Memphis, New Orleans, and St. Louis are all part of the development of the blues that people know about and continue to be in the evenings for a place where you can hear. There's more than 20 blues clubs in St. Louis even today where you can hear the best of American blues. We'll talk about Kansas City jazz in just a moment, but at the National Blues Museum, it just opened in April. It's 23,000 square feet, and of course it does what it purports to do as a museum and traces the development of blues from Africa all the way to today. But what's something unique about this is that it's an interactive museum. Each visitor, as you come through, can develop their own blues song. So as you're going through, you can pick a bass riff, you can pick a tune, you can pick lyrics, you can pick instrumentation. And what happens, John, when you come out at the end is you have a digital song that you created that's unique to you that you can email to yourself. That's kind of a reminder of your experience at the Blues Museum. So that's kind of a modern thing and very, very interesting. In addition, over on the other side of the state in Kansas City is the American Jazz Museum. And in the same way that blues grew up along the Mississippi side, jazz made its way up from New Orleans. People say it was born in New Orleans and grew up in Kansas City, particularly in the 20s and 30s and 40s. Charlie Parker, Count Basie, and others went to Kansas City to the historic 18th and Vine area, and it was just the hottest place in the country for American jazz. And we have the American Jazz Museum on that side of the state it's open today. And again, more than 25 jazz clubs are open on the Kansas City side. So people who are interested in music have the St. Louis choice, have the Kansas City choice, and as I mentioned, down in Branson, all kinds of music down in that region too. So that's a big part of our appeal is our musical venues.
If somebody has a really bad taste, I don't have any inclination about music whatsoever, is there anything else to see and do in St. Louis?
In St. Louis?
Yeah.
A ton of things. One of the things I think is important, maybe not from our standpoint here, but from the visitor standpoint, is it probably has more free world-class attractions in St. Louis outside of the Washington area. Some of those would be the zoo, which is just a world-class zoo, is free. The Gateway Arch, which your listeners might know, which is the largest monument in the United States. It's over 600 feet tall, and that's that beautiful big arch that signifies sort of the westward expansion of our country. It's where people moved from as they explored and pioneered into the western part of our country. And that soaring arch is absolutely astonishing to look at. In fact, when you stand there and look at it, John, it almost looks like it's computer generated. It's so hard to fathom the enormity and the grace and the beauty of this arch. It's undergone about a $400 million, and it's still in the process now, of a redo of the whole area, of the park, of the new museum, of a bike trail along the Mississippi. So many things are going on there. Again, that's going to open next year, and it will be brand new park, and of course the arch will be there. That's something really, really great to visit, and that's of course a free attraction. And then the Anheuser-Busch Brewery Tour with free beer samples at the conclusion of your tour is also located in St. Louis. So that's just to be scratching the surface of things to do there. St. Louis is one of our older cities, and that kind of harkens back a little bit to a European-style city. By our standards, it's fairly old, and I think you'll see in terms of architecture, museums, art galleries, it will be a rich experience from a cultural standpoint. And, of course, it's famous for its food and beer because of Anheuser-Busch. And a local favorite is toasted ravioli, which came from the Italian immigrants that live on the Hill in St. Louis. And as you can imagine, it's based on the Italian ravioli dish, but it has a special breading and toasting that is unique to St. Louis, and it's kind of a signature dish for the area.
Checking it out before you check in on the John Guinn Travel Show on ukhealthradio.com. The spotlight on this week's show is shining very brightly on Missouri. I'm speaking to Dan Lennon, who's the director of Missouri Division of Tourism. Just before the break, we were talking about St. Louis, or St. Louis, if you're one of the locals. And Dan was going on about all the many wonderful things you can see and do while you're there. But when it comes to being in a city, one of the most important things is how do you get around? And that's the next question I put to Dan.
Yes, it is. Of course, it's easier. It's easy to rent a car there. All the major rental cars are there, and it's easy to do that. It is an easy place to get around as well. Public transport and the like.
What should be the best part of St. Louis to stay in if you're a first-time visitor?
That's hard to say, but I would suggest because of the Gateway Arch and the National Blues Museum, and if folks are Cardinal baseball fans, some of the historic architecture and galleries are centered around the downtown area. So, without recommending a particular property, I would suggest in the downtown area along the Mississippi River, you'd be pretty simply located to experience all these things.
Is there much of a nightlife scene in St. Louis?
Absolutely so, and I would say that would be true of both of our big cities. Again, music clubs abound. Cocktail scene, beer and wine is, of course, from our colonial heritage, are big in Missouri culinary situation. So we have that, and of course we have our world famous barbecue. Most people associate it with Kansas City. And they have over 100 barbecue restaurants on the Kansas City side. But St. Louis also has very, very good barbecue, very good Italian. It's a great place to go and eat. And it's a very vibrant lifestyle. Lots of young professionals are moving into the city as it's continuing to redevelop itself. And it's just a thriving, beautiful city.
Is there anything within easy reach of the city? So if you're a couple of hours drive away, so if you wanted to get out and experience something else, is there anything really to grab people's attention?
Yeah, there's several things. One would be the travel out to Columbia, Missouri. Columbia is a little bit over an hour outside, maybe 90 minutes outside, where the University of Missouri is, where there's a wonderful downtown called the District. It's about a 40 square block area of, and of course with all the new students coming in all the time, it's always vibrant.